In this video, we're going to talk about if statements in Go. So let's open up our IDE and get started. Now, I've already created a project. It's called if statements. I created my main.go file, and inside of my main.go file, I have package main and then func main so that the Go compiler knows this is an executable file. And what we're going to do is we're just going to print some statements down here in the terminal. Since we're going to be printing out some statements, let's go ahead and import the fmt package. Now let's jump down here and let's use it. We'll do fmt print ln. Cool. For my program, I want to test if statements. I want to see how they work. So I'm just going to do an age check. I'm going to supply an age, and I'm going to determine if that age is considered an adult or a minor. So I'm just going to call my function adult check. And let's pass it some parentheses and our curly braces. So we've defined our function, we've called it adult check, and we want to receive some information. In this case, I want to receive the age of someone. So I'm going to call this argument age, and it's going to be of type int. And then I want this function to return some information. I want it to respond with you are an adult or you are a minor. So I'm going to return a string. So let's just do a return value here of string. So if statements, if you're coming from another programming language, you're probably used to typing if, some parentheses, and then some curly braces. And then you would do some type of test statement in here. So you might say if age is greater or equal to, and then maybe 18. So we're going to test the age. If it's greater or equal to 18, then we want to return, and we'll say you are an adult. If you're not older than 18, we might just put a default return statement down here that says return in double quotes and then say you are a minor. If you're coming from another programming language, this might look familiar to you. If you're new to programming and this is your first programming language, this is kind of like a standard way that you would write an if statement in most languages. You'll see I have these little squiggly marks right down here, and it's not giving me an error. It's not a red squiggly mark. It's a different color, and let's see what that says. So it's saying redundant parentheses. In Go, they actually allow you to drop these parentheses with an if statement. So you don't need the parentheses. You can put them in there. Our program will still compile. Let's go ahead and just try that with the parentheses. All right, and I want to call my function, so we'll say adult check, and let's just supply it a integer of 18. We'll come down here and we'll do go run main.go, and you can see it still worked. You are an adult. Where I live, if you're 18 or older, you're considered an adult. So it worked, but our IDE is telling us that we don't really need these extra parentheses here, so let's get rid of them. Now let's run this again, and we can see it still works. You are an adult. Now, what happens if you're 17? Now, what happens here when we call our adult check, it's actually going to go in order. So it's first going to check if age is greater than or equal to 18. So if this is true, if this is a true statement, then do what's inside of these curly braces. If this is not true, it's just going to skip down to the next line. It's just going to ignore everything in here. If this is true, it's going to ignore everything after. So it's going to ignore this return statement as if it doesn't even exist. It's just going to return, you are an adult if age is greater than or equal to 18, and then just stop. Don't do this at all. Now this time, we're saying adult check, we're supplying an age of 17, but we're checking if it's greater than or equal to 18. So this should be false. So it's going to skip right over you are an adult, and it's going to jump down to return you are a minor. So let's just check that out. Go run main.go, and it did. It worked. It says you are a minor. Now, one of the other cool things with if statements in Go is you can actually use if with a short statement. And what that means is we could provide a variable declaration right here and use it right after. So let's just pretend dogs age faster than humans. The average human might live to be 80 or 90 years old. The average dog might live to be 15 or 20 years old. So a dog that's 1 year old is kind of equivalent to a human that's 7 years old. So we want to see if our dog is an adult. The way we could do that is with this if short statement. I'll put a D for dog. We'll do the short assignment operator. And then we just want to do our age. We'll use the asterisk for multiplication. And then 7. 7 dog years equals 1. And then we can use the semicolon to end that statement. So right here, we're saying if we're creating this variable of D, doing a calculation, and then we can come over here and we'll just change this. Instead of checking the age, we want to check the age times 7. So we're going to use D. So let's change age to D. And now we're checking if D is greater than or equal to 18, you are an adult. And we're calculating D right here, right in our if statement. So now let's just pretend my dog is 1 year old. My dog just turned 1. And what we expect to happen, we're passing an age of 1 down here to our adult check. We're going to say my dog is equal to his age, so 1 year old times 7. So my dog is 7 years old. Now we want to do, is 7 greater than or equal to 18? We're expecting our program to skip this and then return, you are a minor. But let's change this to, your dog is a minor, or your dog is an adult. Let's rerun this program, and hopefully we get your dog is a minor. Perfect, exactly what we thought. So it skipped right over this return your dog is an adult because my dog 1 times 7 is less than 18. Now let's make sure if our if statement is true, we still return your dog is an adult. So now I want to say my dog is actually 4 years old. My dog just turned 4 last week. So we're expecting to run this adult check. We're passing it an age of 4. We come down here, if D, so 4 times 7 is 28. So my dog is 28 years old. So is 28 greater than or equal to 18? Let's see. Awesome. So your dog is an adult. So we're using the if with a short statement, which is this right here. So you can use it both ways. The first time around, we used it this way. The second time around, we added this short statement in here. Now, one of the cool things about using the short statement is we can actually use this D variable inside of our curly braces right here. We can't use it outside of our curly braces, but we can use it inside. So if I wanted to return your dog as an adult and then include my dog age, I could return 2 values. And if you saw the previous video about functions and returning values, we can return more than one value. And what we can do is we can jump up here after string and we can say, we're also going to return a value of type int. And make sure you put that inside of your parentheses. Now we're getting the squiggly because I just said I'm going to return 2 values, but I'm only returning 1. So if I put a comma and then D, I'm now returning 2 values. I'm returning your dog is an adult and then the value of D. Now a little bit ago I said D is only available to us inside of our if statement. So our if statement starts here and ends here. Now we want to return your dog is a minor and we want to return it with this variable of D. And it says unresolved reference D. Now the reason for that is D is not available. After our curly brace ends right here, we can no longer access D, but we want to. So we can actually use if else. So we can say if this calculates to true, return your dog as an adult, but we can also say else and then provide a second set of curly braces and come down here. And now we're saying else return your dog as a minor with the age. So now we're no longer, our D isn't read anymore because we're inside of our if statement. It's not available to us outside. So let's run this again and see if it returns your dog is an adult along with the dog's age. So we'll come down here, go run main.go. Cool. So your dog is an adult, 28. Let's do this one more time, but let's change our dog to be, my dog is 1 year old, but in doggy years, that's 7 human years. So we're going to multiply 1 times 7, and then we're going to do this check to see if 7 is greater than or equal to 18. And we should get your dog is a minor, and then the value of 7 down here. So let's try it. Cool. So your dog is a minor, and then 7. Now I do want to point out, you can use if else without this if short statement right here. So we could get rid of this if we didn't want to do any calculations and hold that in a variable and use it down here. We could go ahead and get rid of all this. Let's get rid of we're only going to return the string. We're getting the squiggly because we don't need the parentheses when we're only returning one value. So let's get rid of these. And we're no longer testing for D. We'll go back to age, and we're saying if the age is greater than or equal to 18, return your dog as an adult, else return your dog as a minor. So it can work this way as well. You don't have to provide that if short statement. Let's just run this one more time. Cool. Your dog is a minor. Let's change the age again to 4 and run it again. Oops, we're not doing doggy years anymore. So let me do an age of 18 and run it again, and we should get your dog is an adult. Cool. So this is a couple different ways that you can use if statements in Go. You can use the if with a short statement. If you provide a short statement, we could use our D variable down here after we've created it inside of our if, and it only works inside of the if. We weren't able to use it down here outside of the if statement, where we weren't able to do any further operations or checks with that. Like in my previous videos, the best way for this stuff to sink in is to get in and get typing. You can watch it on my screen as I'm doing it and I'm explaining it, but I don't think it really sinks in until I go and type the words out myself. I have to see it on my own. I have to break it a couple times. I have to see the errors that I get and then move on. I think this is a good stopping point for if statements in Go. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notifications, and I'll see you in the next video.